Hi, I'm Michael Ian Black, co-founder of Pudd'nhead, and welcome to the 2020 edition, virtual edition, of Pudd'nhead. We have actually a great event for you tonight. It's a weird evening, obviously, because normally we fill this entire space with all of you, and this year we can't do that. But we're so grateful that you're here virtually, and we have an amazing guest of honor this year, Golden Globe Award winner, Emmy Award winner, Tony nominee, 3-time Academy Award nominee, Laura Linney. Now, I'm speaking to you from our usual location for the Pudd'nhead Gala. This is in situ, the 8-acre garden and sculpture garden that our host Mike Morocco has opened up to us every year for the past 7 years. And before we welcome our guest of honor tonight, we thought we'd show you around the grounds. So this is in situ. This is one of the larger pieces. I call it Guy Eating His Own Foot, but I don't think that's what it's really called. So if you've been to Pudd'nhead before, you know that this is the area where we usually set up our tent, and we have about 200 people in here. This year, unfortunately, we can't do it, but if you feel so inclined, you can come here and you can play a mean game of lawn bowling. This is 8 acres here at In Situ, and if you're not sure how big 8 acres is, it's just big enough so that when you're walking in it, you feel exhausted. I'm already out of breath, and I've been walking for about 45 seconds. The weird observation point is still up. You can look out and shout ahoy to all the ships at sea who are coming in. And what could be more gorgeous than this? Little taste of the tropics here in situ. These are tropical plants, also known as weeds. And look who it is, celebrated sculptor Jimmy Grashow. I'm going to put on my mask to speak to you. Hello.
How are you?
Jimmy is the sculptor of the monkeys here and, all over the country and all over the world.
So if you could just do me a favor,
Yeah.
and maybe curl your arm a little bit and make it more. Now that's perfect. Perfect. Little samurai monkey. I'm internationally known, heralded, celebrated, but at home, I'm
Ignored.
I'm ignored and
Jimmy, how did the monkeys come to be?
I don't know. The monkeys just evolved. And then Michael said, "Look at this space. You want to do something for this space?" And I thought, "Oh my God, monkeys would be fantastic." And anyway, the alphabet. The alphabet. So they always say that the space between the alphabet says much more than the letter itself. So when you're making sculpture or monkeys or anything, or dealing with anything in space, it's always the space between things, you know what I mean, that makes everything. That's the story of the monkey. That's the monkey tale.
Nice.
Thank you. So I know that story took too long. I know I was getting amber and then red.
You got a green light here, Jimmy.
Right, thank you.
Always have a green light at Pudd'nhead.
Anyway.
Well, I know the monkeys are always a favorite here and in situ. When people come to Pudd'nhead, they make a special trip to visit the monkeys.
Right. Monkeys spoke to something deep in the human experience.
Thank you, Jimmy, for speaking to me.
It was so quick. I didn't even. It was the quickest. I was.
You were ready for an afternoon conversation.
I was ready. I didn't. Thank you.
And thank you for your participation and support of Pudd'nhead over the years.
I love Pudd'nhead. I love Reading, and Michael, I'm learning to love you.
Well, we love you, Jimmy, and thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Mike.
I'm just admiring myself in the mirrors. This is one of my favorite sculptures. There's like 3 of these concave mirror jobbies, and it looks like a kind of like a carnival fun house. Well, look who it is.
Speaking of,
Jennifer Wastrom, co-founder and co-chair of the Pudd'nhead Festival and library trustee. What a shock and surprise. And you happen to be dressed for Pudd'nhead.
indeed I am, co-founder and patron saint of Pudd'nhead. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Pudd'nhead. We are thrilled that you're here tonight to celebrate a library that has incredible historic roots. The Mark Twain Library was founded by Samuel Langhorne Clemens himself in 1908, right here in Reading. He moved here because his biographer, Albert Pigelow Payne, lived here, and he wanted to be closer to the guys so that he could get everything down. It was the end of his life, and it was really important that that be done. So Twain got here and fell in love with Reading, had a beautiful home built for himself called Stormfield. He approached his neighbors, the farmers and the writers and the wonderful folk that lived in Reading at the turn of the century, and he said, I will give you my 3,000 extra books and start a library for you, but I'm not going to build you the building. You folks need to raise the money. You need to build your building and you need to run this thing on your own. And he never wanted the Mark Twain Library to be a municipal library. He never wanted any kind of government outfit to be able to say what could be on its shelves or not. Pudd'nhead is a relatively new fundraiser, but it has become an invaluable one. We are beyond appreciative that you are supporting your library and you're supporting this event with humor at its core, because we really need you now more than ever. So thank you so much, and welcome to Pudd'nhead. It's supposed to represent that if you were to cloak race and color and gender and age and religion and anything that might create a prejudice, if you were to cloak that and you wouldn't see that, then the world would be a more peaceful place. And so her idea was to just put installations of them all across the globe as a virtual cloak.
This is the pool area where we often have pre-show cocktails, and it's a fun place to gather. And appropriately, perhaps, there's this sculpture of kind of a drunken angel leaning back in his Doc Martens and his baggy jeans. And it's appropriate because I always think to myself, while we're having drinks here, somebody's going to fall into this pool. Somebody's going to get drunk and fall into the pool. And it hasn't happened yet. Every year I hope, and every year I'm disappointed. Hopefully next year. Well, what a pleasant surprise. It is our other co-founder and co-chair of the Pudd'nhead Festival and library trustee, my dear friend Pam Roby. I know you've got something to say, so I'm gonna socially distance and let you take it away.
Okay, thanks so much.
Well, gee willikers, Michael Ian Black, why did you run away on me? Because you were first on my list to thank. For 7 years, you have put Pudd'nhead on the map. You believed in us, you trusted in us, you brought forward this amazing idea, all for the benefit of the Mark Twain Library. Thank you for joining us tonight for this marvelous first ever virtual edition of the Pudd'nhead Gala at the Pudd'nhead Festival. We have so many to thank and acknowledge for their support over the last several months. How about starting with our marvelous staff who have put together programs, kept the library functioning. I wanted to shout out a special thanks for George Avedon, who is our technology whiz and magician. And if it weren't for George, we literally wouldn't be producing this virtually tonight. There are two very, very important people to thank. Michael and Sandra, without the two of you, Pudd'nhead simply wouldn't exist. I mean, you have opened up this magnificent, stunning, top 10 garden in America property just so that the library could celebrate humor and raise a few pennies each year. And I cannot thank you enough for your kindness and generosity. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. It's been a great gala every year, and we are honored to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's all for a great cause.
Well, look at that. The sun is setting, which means it is just about time to welcome our guest of honor. I hope you've enjoyed this brief tour of In Situ. My giant spoon.
And don't forget your mic.
My microphone, and now it's showtime. To quote Mark Twain, who has a quote for so many things, and he once said, "Buckle up, 2020 is going to be a shit show." He didn't say that, but he did aptly give us this quote. Apparently, so says Mark Twain, there is nothing that cannot happen today. That is so true. And what we're learning in 2020 is that not only is there nothing that cannot happen today, but it often happens several times a day, which is why it is such a pleasure to have a simple evening here tonight to celebrate the legacy of Twain and the library he founded. Unfortunately, we can't be together tonight, and I know this is an imperfect way to celebrate, but all of us are so glad that you chose to support this terrific cause. And because of your generosity, the library founded by Twain will continue just as it has since it first opened its doors over 100 years ago. And the good news is, tonight you are free to get just as drunk as you want, and you don't have to worry about getting home. You're going to be fine. Our honoree this evening is a woman of extraordinary talent. She's recognized as one of our greatest actors. Laura Linney has had so many great roles, including Abigail Adams on the HBO series John Adams, Kathy Jameson in The Big C, both of which she won Emmy Awards for. There are her Oscar-nominated roles in Kinsey, The Savages, and You Can Count on Me on Broadway. She performed in The Little Foxes, in Repertoire with Cynthia Nixon, where they switched roles, and most recently on Broadway in the one-woman show My Name is Lucy Barton, and of course, as the Machiavellian Wendy Bird in the wildly popular and critically acclaimed Netflix series Ozark. And it is my great pleasure to welcome Laura Linney and to present her with one more award to add to her collection, probably the greatest of her career, the $39 giant spoon, our Pudd'nhead Prize. You got it.
I love it so much. I can't tell you how much I love this.
I mean,
and tomorrow morning, I'm going to try and eat cereal with it.
I mean, yeah, why not? Cereal, soup, ice cream, all of them at the same time, if you so desire.
It's just the greatest. Thank you. Thank
you.
You
are so welcome. Laura, thank you for being here. You know, you took time out of your life to celebrate with us, and it just means the world to our community and to our library. So thank you.
Well, it is a complete privilege, and I'm only sorry that we can't be together, but at least there are libraries that are there and open. And, you know, libraries for me have always been an extremely important part of my life, and I value them more than I can possibly sort of explain. But I'm so happy for all the work that you all do and for a community that's—
Oh, don't get me wrong, Laura. I do almost nothing.
Oh, you do nothing.
I
All right,
do
well, not
almost nothing. I show up here and take the lion's share of the credit for this event. But in truth, all the work gets done by my co-founders, Jen Wastrom and Pam Roby, who you just saw in that video. And they are extraordinary women, and we are so grateful to have them. I want to start by asking you about Ozark. I know you were supposed to be shooting now. It seems like that has been delayed. And there's like a season and a half left, right? Am I getting that right?
There's one elongated season left.
Yeah, okay. So like a 1.5 seasons-ish.
That's right. That's right. We're going down to shoot 14 episodes.
And
I leave in a few days.
Do you know how it ends? And if so, can you tell us, please?
I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing. And it's, you know, Ozark is one of those rare jobs, very much like John Adams, where, you know, it's a miracle that any good work ever happens. There's so much has to be in alignment. There's so many things that can go wrong. And Ozark is just one of those jobs from the very beginning where I thought, oh boy, this is going to be fun, and it might even be good to boot. And I trust this group of people more than I've ever trusted any, you know, community of artists that I've worked with before. So I'm excited to see what they have planned. But I tend to really stay out of their way because they're so good at what they do that I just sort of can't wait to see.
Well, you know somebody, you know, one of the main characters is going to die at the very least. What are the odds that it's you? What are the odds that it's Jason Bateman? 50-50? Is it both? You don't know.
You know, yeah.
You don't know.
You know, yeah. We call Chris Mundy, who's our showrunner, the Grim Reaper. You never know, like who's gonna fall. So it could be. Who knows? We'll see.
How did you get involved in Ozark?
I got, very mundane. I got a phone call. My manager also reps Jason Bateman, and they were trying to put the show together. And I wasn't looking to do television at the time. I had come off the big C. I had just had a baby, so I was sort of looking to stay home a bit. But I went and met with Jason, and I've always really liked him. I didn't know him personally at all. And I've always been curious as to, there's certain actors who sort of stay in a certain lane. And there's some people who you just sort of have a suspicion of like, oh, there's more there. And when are they going to step outside the lane? And I'd always sort of been waiting for Jason to do that. And, when he came to me with the script, I was, thrilled that he would want me to be a part of it. And I just wanted to see him sort of take this step into unknown territory.
Was the character of Wendy fully formed by the time you saw the initial project? Did you understand kind of her scope when you first read the script? Well,
pilots develop a lot over time, and the script needed a little bit of development as far as my character was concerned, and they told me right off the bat that was going to happen. Now, it was a leap of faith that would actually transpire, but I had many long conversations with Chris Mundy about, when I read the script, the thing that kept coming to me was just the sense of identity, that in many ways it's a group of people who don't know each other very well. They don't know who they are, and they don't know each other. And as the show progressed, I thought it would be interesting if that was somehow worked in so that we could constantly be surprised by each other, and surprised by our own instincts and our own actions. So they, Chris and his writers beautifully sort of thematically worked it. And so it's turned into something far more than I ever could have imagined.
She's such a fierce woman and a strong woman, and a woman who's intimately involved in the politics of her community and of her time. And it made me think, she shares a lot with Abigail Adams in a weird way. They're both you could call them both feminists, certainly. You could call them both strong, determined women. Yeah. I wouldn't say Abigail was ruthless, but she certainly knew what she wanted.
She had a spine.
Oh, yeah.
They both had a spine. I think Abigail Adams is probably a better mother than Wendy Bird is. I think Wendy Bird is a terrible parent. She's just terrible.
She really is.
Yeah, she's awful. She's an awful parent. But, they both have a survival instinct that runs very deep. Surviving from very different, elements, and they're both not afraid to work hard. I think Abigail Adams was far more emotionally mature than Wendy Bird is. And what I love playing, one of the things I love playing about her is that she's so immature. And she just reacts, and she's shrewd, but there's a lack of connection there at times with her, which I love playing someone who's just so primitively reactive.
Are you somebody who, you strike me as somebody who's very focused and in control. Do you have in your life that sense of abandon? Are you able to just let go?
I think so. Not all the time, but I think so. I think the people who know me well have seen, the wackier side of me. Uh-huh.
Laura Linney, and cut loose.
And cut loose.
Yeah.
And also on stage, I find a real freedom on stage with good material. And that's the thing. When material is really good, it creates a freedom within you. It's when stuff doesn't work that you get laden down, and it's difficult and hard to do. But the more things are sort of in place, the easier it is to pull off.
Can you explain to people who aren't actors why somebody like yourself, who you can choose to do anything you want, but I understand. From my point of view,
yes,
you can do whatever you want. Somebody who chooses to return to the stage every year, every other year, and put yourself through the ringer for 8 performances a week for very little money, when you could also choose not to do that. Can you explain for people who aren't actors, what is the appeal of the stage? Why does it attract actors so strongly?
Well, I think if you grow up in the theater, as I did, my father was a playwright, and I grew up around the theater and in the theater. And I started working backstage as a very young person at the New London Barn Playhouse in New London, New Hampshire. I was a technical apprentice from a very early age, and then slowly worked my way on stage. I was very shy about it, and it took me a while to sort of confess that I wanted to act. So when it's what you know, it's familiar, and there's something about the work ethic that, for me, just feeds my soul in a way. There also, the job is different. Being a theater actor versus film and television, your responsibilities are very, very different. So, film and television are really director and producer mediums, and the theater is writer and actor medium, and a director as well. But the story's really fully yours. Once you have rehearsal and you go through all of that, and then the show is handed over to the cast, you're driving the car. No one else is. And there's also the biggest difference, and the biggest thing that I miss the most when I'm not doing theater, is the element of time, and what time does to work. The time that you have in rehearsal, the time that you have in previews, and then hopefully the elongated time that you get to actually run a show, and to see how time affects your work and the connections that you have while you're working. Your connection to the person you're speaking to, your connection to the theater itself, your connection to the material. And there's a wonderful period of time, because you're telling the story from beginning to end, 8 shows a week, where you stop working on the play and the play starts to work on you. And you just try to get out of the way. Now, you have to be very prepared for that to happen. You have to sort of earn that space of grace. But I love that. And that doesn't happen in film and television. Other great things happen there. But
free lunch, snacks all the time.
That's right. All the time. Yeah, gummy bears at 4 a.m.
Whenever you want gummy bears, they're there. From like night to night when you're doing a show, how much does your performance change?
Not as much as it might feel inside. I mean, there are times where I feel like, oh Lord, that was totally off. I was absolutely dreadful tonight, and it felt good the night before, and what happened, and the director will come back and say it was absolutely in alignment with what you did yesterday. So there's like what you were doing. So you can't really trust your own internal feelings about that. It'll change 1 or 2 degrees. I mean, sometimes the highs might be a little higher and the lows might be a little lower, but then something else will balance out. So it's probably, hopefully it's not that different.
You mentioned your father, Romulus Linney, who was a playwright and writer, and you've also said that he had a profound influence on your work. I have a question from our audience. This is from Maddie and Duncan Leslie. How has and I guess Duncan Leslie's dad was a play publisher and knew your dad quite well. Yeah. And remembers your father talking a lot about Romulus and their work together. How has your father's work as a playwright influenced your work as an actor?
Well, I certainly understand a writer's process, or certain writers and what they go through. I also I start story first, and I will try and look for every clue that a writer is giving me, whether that's in punctuation, whether it's in the length of a sentence, whether it's, things that are hidden in the first act and then pay off in the third act, and where are those stepping stones? Where is that? So I look for all the secret hidden language that a writer, the good writers, will give you, whether they know they're doing it or not. They give it to you. You just have to find it. So there's that. And then also, I sort of always judge where I am with a script, because growing up around my father and knowing his plays as well as I did, I sort of use that as a barometer. Like, if I don't know the script that I'm working on, if I don't feel as familiar with it as I do with one of my father's works, Holy Ghosts or Frederick or, Child Byron, then I know I still have more work to do. So he's sort of a, guidepost along the way.
Did you have an opportunity to act in any of his plays?
I did one play in college of Child Byron. I figured, this is probably the one opportunity I'll have to do it, and it's in a safe environment, and because I knew when I got out of school that I would make the choice to stay a little further away from his stuff.
Was there
Just
anything
for me and for him, for both of us?
Did he see that performance?
He did see it. He did see it.
Was there? You talked about how his work influenced you and continues to influence you. Did acting in his work inform you about him at all?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
I promised not to make you think about these questions too hard. I said it's going to be softballs, and look what I did.
That's actually a really good question. I'm sure it did. I think there are things I recognized in the plays that confirmed things for me about him. I always love sort of figuring out like why he wrote that play. Like, what made him write that play? Why that? What's that about? And then sort of like the mystery of your parent.
Yeah.
Like, what made them write that?
What is wrong with my parents?
Well, yeah, you learn things. You learn about trauma, and you learn about obsessions, and you learn about passion, and you learn about intellect, and you learn about all these writer.
Have you ever written? Do you ever write?
No. No.
A few years ago, you were on Colbert's show, and you said to him that you still don't feel like you've made it. I don't know if that's changed for you. I suspect not. But can you explain what it is that you feel like why you feel like you haven't made it?
I just don't know what people talk about when they're saying that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
I think they mean like when you get the third Oscar nomination, they're like, oh yeah, that person has probably made it.
But who wants to like get to the destination?
Right.
It's not about getting to a destination. It's not. And if you feel like you know something or you've achieved something, then you're instantly stunted. So I just don't. I don't know. It's just not a thinking that I just sort of don't go there.
But does that manifest itself in a kind of insecurity, or you're secure in your work and in yourself?
I kind of don't want to get there. I like the curiosity being at a high level. I like the discomfort is the wrong word, but the desire to figure something out, to see, can I do this? And if you rest on laurels, you're going to be a little too comfortable, I think. So, I mean, I don't mean that I don't be in pain. And of course, I'm very proud of the work that I've done and the people I've been able to work with. And I'm shocked that I've worked as much as I have. But I sort of think like an artist and making it just doesn't, I don't know. It's a strange way to look at an artistic life.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, the answer, your answer was incorrect, because having won the Pudd'nhead Prize, you have officially made it.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
One thing I've always wondered about, like when you, and trust me, I have no experience with this, but when you win awards.
Oh, hold on, my spoon is falling down. Hold on.
That's very delicate.
Okay.
Those are manufactured in Taiwan. They are very delicate, Laura.
I'm hanging it in my kitchen. I'm going to see it every day.
Here's something I've always wondered, because I have no experience with it, but when you win an award, like say you win an Emmy, which you have done, How long does that like glow of winning an Emmy last? Is it like a week? Is it a month? Is it over by the next morning? Like, how long does that last?
You know, there'll be moments where I'm walking down the street and I'll like the realization that nominations have come my way and that I've won a few things have happened, like hit you, and you sort of, I just kind of giggle a little bit. You know, and it's a very heady thing because it means different things to different people. So I think you sort of have to figure out what it means for you and not get distracted or take the bait.
Can I ask what it means for you?
Well, it's just encouraging.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just like a little pat on the back.
Yeah.
You're
like,
doing good,
hey,
kid. Keep it up.
You didn't stink. Like, not bad.
Yeah.
You know, and it's also not about me. It's partly about me, but it's also about everything else that has to come into alignment for a job to be effective. You know, for a story to be really well told, you need great producers, great fellow actors, terrific writers. So there's like an invisible army of people behind any actor who wins anything. That's not to take away from, you know, the hard work and hopefully some degree of skill that, you know, goes into all of it. But, you know.
One thing I wanted to ask you about Wendy Bird in particular, because the character is, you and Jason have become kind of dual protagonists on the show, or even kind of dual antagonists. It's hard to know which. Yeah. And Wendy's arc has been maybe the most extraordinary out of anybody's. When you look at like the landscape of television right now, do you feel like that character, the Wendy Bird character, would have been possible on a series when you first started out?
Oh no, definitely not.
But Jason's would have, right?
Not at all.
I mean, it feels like it's such a strong female show, which is not something I feel like people talk about that much with Ozark.
No, it's true. There's, you know, between me and Lisa Emery, who plays, you know, Darlene Snell, and Julia Garner, and Sophia and Janet McTeer, and you know, they're great women on the show. And the thing I love is that we're all blonde. I sort of love that it takes the blonde stereotype and sort of turns it on its head. And that was not intentional, but it's sort of a happy coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about it. I mean, to me, the show is largely about strong women and in a lot of ways, weak men. Like, I mean, the men it seems like the women often get the better of the men, and it feels in a weird way like a very, I don't know, is feminist too strong a word for what that show is in such an odd bird kind of way?
Feminist in bad behavior.
Yeah. Well, in a kind of liberating behavior, in showing women being like just absolute terrors and monsters.
You know, and
capable of great
also
compassion.
There's just a deep desire to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Every woman on that show is just desperately trying to survive. So, you know, formality goes out the window.
Right.
You know, they're all just digging in, and they don't want to die.
Which is great motivation.
You know, good motivation, yeah.
You told Larry King once that the worst piece of advice you ever got was don't go to drama school. Were there people in your life saying don't go to drama school?
Yeah, there were, yeah. And they loved me and I loved them, but they had bad experiences at drama schools and didn't, you know, and it wasn't for them. Then they were trying to, you know, give me the best advice, but thankfully, I just instinctively knew it was something I had to do. And fortunately, I went to the right school for me, and it's not right for everyone. Right. But for me, it was. And I loved going to Juilliard, and I loved it there. I loved the students in my class. I loved, you know, having that type of concentrated time where I didn't have to worry about anything other than trying to be better, trying to learn as much as I could from people who knew a lot more than I did. And I loved that.
I'm going to open up for some of these audience questions that came in. Before I do, though, I want to remind people watching that we do have a silent auction. There's a ton of great stuff up there for you to bid on, including stuff from past honorees Jon Hamm and Paul Rudd. We are also continuing our tradition of giving away one-of-a-kind items from Game of Thrones. Laura, I don't know if you want to bid. We've got great stuff.
Nice.
Great stuff. Here's a question from, oh, and it closes at 10. Closes at 10. There's two similar questions, so I'll just sort of combine them. But one is from Julie. Did you have any idea when you were working on Love Actually that it would become a perennial? And what was it like working with Alan Rickman, one of our great actors?
No, I had no idea. I was just so happy to be invited into that cast of people. And I'm a Christmas fanatic, so the idea that I was going to be in a Christmas movie just sent me, beyond. I was so excited.
Do you stick to one Christmas tree, or do you sometimes have multiple Christmas trees?
No, we have multiple trees. We have a forest. Oh yes, color themed. I have a woodland animal tree. I have the red and white tree. They sort of move around, and and I go everywhere from like classy Christmas to just like tacky Christmas. Like the dancing Santas and the all of that sort of stuff. And then I love the beauty of Christmas and the music and all. I'm just a sucker for it. But Alan Rickman was, losing him was really a blow for so many of us. He was one of the most generous people I've known. He would show up to every play I did.
Wow.
Every single one. He was always in touch. He was there for advice. If he came into town, he always called. He was a unbelievable mentor and a great friend to so many of us. So working with him was, it changed my life in many ways. The guidance that he gave and the kindness, the generosity, is just sort of unmatched. He was really a spectacular human being. It was a huge loss when he left.
You've also mentioned how your favorite leading man to work with is Liam Neeson, who's in Love Actually. Did you guys work together on Love Actually?
We didn't.
So did you really know him at all then?
I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. I think I did already know him. We did The Crucible together, and then we did Kinsey together. And then we've done several, we've worked together a bunch, and he's a dear close friend. But I've had some really good leading men, I've got to say. I've worked with some really, really good people.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, are there moments when you're opposite a leading guy and you, like, just personally, like, like, we're just not birds of a feather. Does that translate? I mean, does that translate to screen where, like, you would watch or an audience watches and goes, oh yeah, those people are mismatched? Or has the reaction to that generally surprised you?
I find that weirdly, it certainly helps if you like who you're working with. It helps a lot.
I would think, yeah.
As far as the experience is concerned. But a lot of the time, it's not reflected in the work. If both people are good and they do their work, then it's, you'll be really surprised at how, personal feelings won't come through, good or bad. But I've been really lucky that there's very fleeting few disasters that I've had to work with.
Are you somebody who enjoys watching yourself?
Can't stand it.
You can't do it.
Stand it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Nope.
What about after a couple years have gone by?
It's 5 years.
That's your minimum, 5.
Yeah, 5. Yeah.
So have you not seen Ozark?
I have seen some of Ozark.
Right. I get it. I totally get it. Here's a question that I think some people often wonder about dark material. And I'm sure you're in a great position to answer it. This is from Nancy. I really enjoy Ozark. I actually had to take a break from watching it because it's so nerve-wracking. Has there ever been a time filming that series that you felt the weight of it was affecting you?
Only once, and that was at the end of the last season, because the schedule was intense. The episodes, 7, 8, 9, and 10 of season 3 were heavy. And I remember Tom Pelfrey, who played my brother, and I walked in. It was the last week of filming, and his back was hurting, and I had a twitch in my face, and we were just wrung out. We were wrung out. The hours were long. There was night shooting. It was hot. So there was a lot going on. So every once in a while, just physically, you'll sort of short circuit. You're eating at weird hours, you're up very, very early, and then you have to work all night, 2 days later. So you can, at the end of a long shoot, you can feel it a little bit. But most of the time, because we all get along so well, and the work, our producers are so skilled that it's sort of a joy.
Yeah, it's fun, right? I mean, there are the gummy bears. They're there.
It's true. They're there all the time. All the time.
Yeah, I mean, and Swedish Fish, which I know you love.
Yeah, the fish. Gotta have the fish.
Are you a gummy person?
And I also like, what else I really like? I like the pretzel squares with the peanut butter in them.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
Those are really good. When you've been acting, and you're a little tired, it'll that and a Coca-Cola. I'm a happy girl.
I have a rule where the only time I drink Diet Coke is on set, and I consume a lot of them.
No Diet Coke.
I understand. I understand.
No.
My wife is the same. She refuses.
You gotta be a purist.
I get it.
Why do that? It's like dishwater. Why?
I don't know. I got in the habit of it.
Do the real thing.
Wow. That was just a slam.
You
gave me a proper raspberry.
It's the one thing I have real judgment about.
I'm not changing my ways for you, Laura Linney.
I say man up. I say man up and drink the real
drink a real Coke. From Darcy, you were the voice of, you are, I think, still the voice of Masterpiece Theater. Can you describe how that came about and what it felt like to fill Alistair Cook's epic shoes? And did you ever meet him?
I did not meet him, but I certainly grew up watching him.
Yeah.
So when they called and asked me to do it, I was sort of really tickled. And then I had no idea that it would sort of have the impact that it had. Downton Abbey. I started doing it before Downton Abbey was produced. So I'd done it for a year or two before, and then this thing called Downton Abbey showed up and sort of exploded. But it was fun, and I did it because of the tradition of Alistair Cook and how much I loved Masterpiece Theater growing up. So I had great fun doing it.
Yeah, and what an easy gig too, right? You're just standing there, the camera swings around, you say a couple of words, and you can cash your check. Fabulous.
I walk around in a big red room, and or I did. Now it's just my voice. I was replaced by Ralph Lauren's ads.
Well,
so
they're very attractive ads.
They are.
Here's one of the moment, an au courant question from Laura. My husband and I enjoyed watching your new movie, Falling, at this year's Sundance. It was outstanding. Do you have, given its raw and truthful nature, I don't know anything about it, so I can't comment. How will it be distributed, and why hasn't it been more widely touted?
Well, thank you for seeing it, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. Falling is a movie that was written and directed by Viggo Mortensen. He's also the lead in it. I'm in it for a very short period of time. I only have one or two scenes in it, so I'm barely in it. So it's a very nice compliment for but and it's a story about a family and with a difficult father, and how everybody sort of has to deal with that, both when you're young and then as you get older, and how the relationship changes and shifts. And I just wanted to work with Viggo. and wanted to help him sort of do this monumental task of putting something together, and I love low budget movies. I think you really got to roll up your sleeves and give it a try. And, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And, but I love working with really talented people, and Viggo's quite something. I mean, he's really there. I don't know anybody quite like Viggo. His interests are wide and varied, and he's, fully committed to anything he does. And, he's really a spectacular artist.
Can you just, whether it was the material or the experience or whatever it is, can you share one of your most favorite scenes to make?
Yeah, absolutely. That's easy. The first Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin is a mini series that I did in the very early 90s. And I had a scene with Parker Posey in a grocery store in the Safeway in San Francisco. And we started in the frozen food section, and we each had a cart. And we went down this long shot of us rolling the cart. And it was literally the first time that I filmed something where I thought, oh my God, this is fun. Like I was very insecure about working in front of a camera. I didn't think I was a theater actress and didn't quite understand what I was doing in this new world, in this new medium. And it was the moment where the penny dropped. I was like, oh, this could be really fun. I think I might like this. So it was a big day for me. It really sort of changed. It opened up a whole other world for me. And then there are a lot of times doing John Adams, which is really like one of the, I can't begin to describe to you what that was like. It was a spectacular experience. And there was a day where I was standing in what was the White House set. And I looked out, and there was acres and acres of land with fallen trees, and they put snow all over the trees. And I was in this magnificent outfit. The production values were so high, and the talent was so deep. The props, every prop was a work of art. It was incredible. And I knew at that moment, I was like, I'm never going to see anything like this again. And I was like, just enjoy every second of this one you can, because it was a.
What kind of research did you have to do to play Abigail Adams? That's a question from Judd.
Well, there's actually not as much on her as you would think. So it's all sort of in relationship to John Adams and through the letters that they exchanged. So I sort of had to interpret a few things. And when I found out she was pigeon-toed, that kind of did something. I was like, oh, underneath those long skirts, she was pigeon-toed. And what does that do? The fact that John Adams married up, she was a parson's daughter, and she was considered to be in a higher class than he was. The fact that she was very, very angry that she was not allowed to go to school. And then the sort of wonderful, interesting moment where you find out that once she went to Paris, she came back a very different person.
What changed about her?
Well, she saw Paris. How do you keep them down on the farm once they see Paris?
Right.
There's some truth to that. And she came back selling lace and more involved in her husband's career. And they came off that boat and they were famous. All of a sudden there was celebrity and a little bit of power, and how that sort of catapulted the last, decades of her life. I just found it fascinating. So it's more sort of in the interpretation of factual history that gives you can sort of think, oh, that happened, and then this behavior was going on. So what's the link? What is it?
Do you enjoy your own celebrity? Is that something you find fun, or is it more of a burden?
Well, I'm lucky because I think I'm well known, but I'm not necessarily famous.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. That's nice. And I sort of feel, people are very kind. And there are days where I walk down the streets in New York and it's like, everyone's my friend. Hi, Laura. Hi, how you doing? And everybody's so nice that it's, and nobody is inappropriate. I mean, rarely, occasionally there's the strange oogling person, but for the most part, everybody's just very decent and very kind. So I fortunately don't have the, that real crushing fame that I think can.
That I have. I understand. The kind of thing that I understand.
I was trying to be gentle.
You were
about
being
it.
very delicate, and I appreciate
I didn't
it.
want to
Thank
make
you.
you feel bad, but
Yeah. No. Look. I asked for this. I asked for it.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Did you ever consider like relocating permanently to the West Coast, or were you always going to be an East Coast person?
I was always going to be an East Coast person. And no one believed me when I told them that. I can remember doing the first tales and they were all like, oh, you're moving to LA. You're moving to LA. And I thought to myself, no, I'm not. No, I'm really not. And I love going to LA. And I had an apartment there for a while, which I loved. But I'm just such an East Coast creature. And I love both worlds. So I think once people go to Los Angeles, they tend to get sucked up there and then feel like if they're not there, they're missing out on something.
And I should add, I don't know if I mentioned before, but you are joining us from the wilds of Connecticut, where we obviously are, and you are a longtime Connecticutter.
I am. I'm in the northwest corner of Connecticut. My mother and stepfather and my aunt were here before I was, and I love it here. This is my favorite place on the planet.
I'm with you, sister. Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, Laura Linney, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I mean, we gave you the Pudd'nhead Prize. You've been so generous with your time and with your thoughtful answer to the questions. And I'm just so grateful. And I know the Mark Twain Library is grateful, and our little community here in the wilds of Connecticut is grateful.
Really a thrill to be invited and to have my spoon. And thank you to Frank Dolger for making the trip up to deliver the spoon into my hands.
That was very nice of him. I didn't even know that until you just said that.
Yeah.
He's our Game of Thrones hookup,
Not a bad guy to know.
I know. So yeah, I look forward to photographic evidence of the spoon hanging in your kitchen.
With the Cheerios, with like 2 Cheerios and a little bit of milk in there.
And that's comedy. Laura Linney, thank you so much. And thank you for all your continued work.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all so much. Stay safe.